Welcome back, Cat 5 class. We're still in Chapter 3, Part 1. We're going to finish this Chapter Part 1 by going over some of the AutoCAD commands that I have not covered yet. So let's go down to some of the commands that we're yet to cover. Okay, by now you should be familiar with line command, circle command, maybe even arc and ellipse. Okay, so let's cover polyline. Okay, so polyline. I'll just open up any AutoCAD file, which I already have open. Just randomly pick this one before starting the video. Okay, so let's go over polyline. I'll leave it on the visible layer. Okay, so polyline, click on it. And I'm just going to click in space and start creating a line. And I'm going to click. Okay, it's waiting for me to make my next move. If I wanted to create an arc for my next element, so I already have a horizontal line, I can click arc down here in the command. If you're using the old AutoCAD, you have to type in the letter A, whatever is in capital and or blue text. You need to type it in. This is if you're using like really old AutoCAD. Okay, so you can either type in the whole word arc or just the letter A, or click on it here. So we're using the latest, so click on arc. Notice it starts creating an arc. And click. Okay, so it stays an arc and it'll create a tangent arc, as you can see, and it'll keep going. If I want to now go with the horizontal line, I can go back and click on line if I want. Click. Let me turn on object snap. Okay, so polyline can do a bunch of things. Let me go ahead and hit enter to exit. So that's one thing to be aware of. And there's other stuff that you can do with polyline. You can play around with the options or even go through your textbook to play with other options. Another thing that we use polyline for is arrowheads. Now, unfortunately, AutoCAD doesn't have an arrowhead command like other softwares, at least not that I'm aware of. If we would, it would be somewhere in here in the annotate tab, and I don't see it. Okay, so sometimes you have to create your own arrows. Okay, so let me walk you through creating an arrowhead, and we will be using them when we take section views, when you cut down the middle of a part, take an imaginary cut, and that will be in a later chapter. All right, so let's use polyline again, polyline. Okay, so let's say I'm ready to start my line, and let me do a vertical line this time, and I'm gonna click. Okay, and I want to change the width, the line weight. Okay, so I'm going to click on the word width. Okay, it's asking me for the starting width. Okay, so I'm going to draw an arrowhead pointing upward. So my first width is going to be 0. So the default is 0, or I can type in 0, enter. And for my second width, you can go with 0.1. 1 inch, or by mistake, 1 unit. Let me see what happens if I try 1. So I'm going to type in 1 for my ending width. 3, 2, 1, enter. And there's a width of 1 unit. So it starts off at the top point at 0 and it tapers to 1 unit. Okay, so if I like that width, click, and you can keep going, and it keeps that same width. As you can see, you can keep going if you like. I'm just going to right click, enter to exit. So this is one way of creating an arrow. And just like a line, you can click on it, and it also has grips. So you can extend, shorten, or move it over, for example. Okay, so that's polyline. There's a lot of more other stuff you can do with polyline. Once again, you can go through that in your textbook in chapter 2. Or if you want to just play with it on your own, see what you discover. All right, so that was polyline. Let me go ahead and delete this. All right, so, and you should already be familiar with the circle command. Let's say you had to draw your own circle. Let me turn on construction layer. So let's say you didn't have the circle. You wanted to draw your own circle. Let me go ahead and delete it. So I'm going to use the circle command. Okay, circle. Okay, and there's different options by the way of defining your circle. I'm going to go with center and radius, the first option. So I know this is my center where the green lines intersect. Click. And I can either go to any of the 4 quadrants, right, to define my circle, or I can actually type in a radius. If I know what the radius is, I can type it in. Okay, so if I know what my radius is, let's say it's 1, I can type in 1. And in 3, 2, 1, enter. Whoa, that's way too big, right? Good thing is you can always change it. So radius of 1, that's way too big for this top view. I can always use the grips to change the radius and hit escape to deselect. Okay, so another way to create a circle, let me go ahead and delete this. 3-point circle. Okay, I'm going to do a 3-point circle. Actually, you know what? Let's do 2-point circle first. And the 2 points either have to be vertical quadrants or horizontal quadrants. Okay, so let's do the vertical one first, 2 points. So I can go from this point to that point. So that's the top quadrant, lower quadrant. Ta-da! Okay, let's go ahead and delete it. Let's do once again a 2-point circle, except this time we'll go from the left quadrant to the right quadrant. Ta-da! Okay, so you have to go from one extreme to the other for this option to work. All right, now let's do a 3-point. I'm gonna delete this. Okay, let's do a 3-point circle. So 3-point. So I'm gonna go 1 quadrant, 2 quadrants, and 3 quadrants. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, now let's do the arc. Okay, so let's go over to the arc command. I'm going to delete this one. So let's say you had to draw your arc. Okay, so let's see what options we have. So we have 3-point arc. Okay, so let's go to 3-point arc. By the way, if at any time you want to deviate from the option, so we are in 3-point arc, you can always change it here in the command line. If you want to instead start off with the center point, you can click on center. Okay, we're gonna ignore this portion of it and just click a 3-point arc, not the center point. So we'll go with quadrants. So let's see what happens if I go from here to here and to here, right? Ta-da! There it is. Let me delete it. I'm going to do the same 3-point arc again. This time I'll start from the bottom. 1, 2, 3. That works, right? Okay, so sometimes you do have to change the order. Okay, so there's more options when it comes to creating an arc. As you can see, I'll let you play around with these. Okay, just remember that you can always start off with the center also. You can always deviate from the option here by clicking on the center option here in the command line when it lights up, or when it shows up, I should say. All right, so let's go on to another command. Okay, rectangle. Okay, here we have the rectangle command. Rectangle, click, and you're going to go diagonally. So if I pick the bottom left corner first to define, then I'm going to go diagonally, and that'll define my rectangle, right? Pretty straightforward. Okay, you can also use the line command to create a rectangle, right? Let me track this one and track this one. So you can also create a rectangle using the line command. Okay, now there is a difference. Let me right click enter. And you want to have ortho on if you're going to create a rectangle using the line command. All right, so what's the difference between these two rectangles? Well, the one on the left, we use line command. The one on the right, we use rectangle command. Okay, so the one on the left is 4 separate lines, as you can see, right? It's 4 separate entities that are connected to make a rectangle. Let me hit escape to deselect. Okay, this rectangle, if I was to try and separate them, you're going to see that it's going to move as one. So in this case, this is one entity made up of 4 elements. Okay, so when you use the rectangle command, it'll be one entity. Okay, so as you can see, if I try to change it, it will change it to a quadrilateral, but it keeps it connected, as you can see. You can even do parallelogram. Whoop, didn't click correctly, but you get the picture. All right, so once again, when you use the rectangle command, all 4 sides are considered one entity. Now you do have the option of breaking them apart. I was going to wait on this command, but might as well go over it. Okay, so below the pencil eraser, we have the explode command. If you're using an old version of AutoCAD, it will actually be a stick of dynamite and not a cube that seems to be falling apart or exploding. Okay, so pre-select, in this case, the quadrilateral or parallelogram, and explode, and it will break it up into 4 separate entities, as you can see. All right. Okay, so I can put them back together if I want to. So right now they're 4 separate entities. Let me turn on Object Snap so I can put them back together. Gotta make sure there's no gap. Okay, they're all joined together. All right, so now even though they're 4 separate entities, let me hit escape. Notice I can still break them apart if I want to. If you want to join them back up, there is a command called join. Okay, and it's the 2 arrows facing each other. Okay, so this is the join command. Okay, so I click on join and select the, in this case, 4 elements, and hit enter. And now they're all joined again. Okay, and as you can see, it moves as one. It's one entity. All right, so we covered circles, arcs, rectangles, and we also did the join and explode. Okay, so let's move on to, let's see what other options we have here. Again, I'm just going through them briefly. Later on, in later videos, I will use some of these commands as you're growing in your AutoCAD skills. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, we have polygon. Completely forgot about polygon. Let me delete these items. I need some room here. All right, so let's talk about polygon. Okay, so here we go, polygon. Okay, so it's asking me how many sides. All right, let's do a pentagon. 5 sides. Enter. Okay, so now it's asking me for a center. Okay, a center. I'll just pick any point out in space as my center. Click. Okay, so I picked a random point in space. I clicked. Now it's asking, do you want your polygon to be inscribed in a circle or circumscribed about a circle? Let's do the first one. Notice how it defaults to I, inscribed. Let's do the inscribed first. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so now it's asking me for a radius of this imaginary circle that we can't see. So I'm going to type in 1. Let me use a 1-inch radius and enter. Ta-da! So that's an inscribed. Now let's do the exact same command with the same radius imaginary circle, except we're going to go with the second option. So let's do it again. Okay, so let's do polygon again. We'll keep it as 5 sides. Okay, so 5-sided polygon, pentagon. Here we go. It's asking me for the center. Oh, I forgot to you know what? Let me escape. I need to escape this because I do not know where the center is at. So let me draw some lines going across, and wherever they intersect, that's the center. Okay, so let me use a different color. I'll use green. Okay, so let me go from top point to midpoint, escape. It's a regular pentagon, meaning all 5 sides are equal and the angles are equal. So I should go to this point here, turn off ortho. So go to this midpoint from the vertex, so it's opposite leg, midpoint, and there it is. Now I know the center is right there, right? You can prove it to yourself by going from one vertex to its opposite leg, midpoint. There it is. And let's do the last one. Why not? Vertex, go to the opposite side, midpoint. There it is. All right, so I'm going to use that same center point to create another pentagon. So let's go to pentagon. Okay, so we'll go with 5 sides again. Enter. Pick the center. There it is. And this time, instead of inscribe, we're going to go with circumscribe about a circle. Click that option. Okay. And let me turn on ortho. There it is. And it's asking me for a radius. Okay, so I'm going to type in 1 again for my radius. 1. You can see in the command line, I typed in 1 and enter. And there it is. And let me move this over to the visible layer. Okay, so let me hit escape. So what's the difference? Why is one larger than the other? We use the exact same radius of 1. One is inscribed, the other is circumscribed about a circle with a radius of 1, this imaginary circle. Well, let's go ahead and draw this imaginary circle with the 1-inch radius. So circle command, go to center point. And for our radius, we're going to type in 1. 3, 2, 1, enter. And now you see the difference. The inscribed polygon, or in this case pentagon, the vertices hit the circle. All 5 vertices hit the circle. The outside one, circumscribed, is tangent to the circle. So all 5 legs are tangent to the circle. Okay, so that's the difference between inscribed and circumscribed about a circle. All right, so let's move on. Okay, ellipse. Let me go to the visible layer. Let's go to the ellipse command, ellipse. Okay, so when you do an ellipse, we're going to click for center point. And then we need to define our major and minor diameter. So I'll just randomly click. Okay, so there it is. We have our major and or minor diameter, one of them. And now we create the other one and click one more time. And there's our ellipse. Okay. All right, so, and you also have elliptical arc, very similar to the arc command. I'm not going to cover that, but it's very similar. All right, so now let's go with the hatching command. Okay, so hatching. Okay, hatch. Well, you need a closed profile to make this work. It has to be a closed profile like this one. Watch what happens when I go inside. And I click, and it hatches the inside. Okay, so later on when we take section cuts, when we take apart, so just as an example, later on, we're going to be taking solids, imaginary solids. I'll just randomly pick one. Let's see if I pick a good one. And sometimes we need to cut them down the middle to expose what's on the inside. All right. Oh, not a good example. This one has no inside features. Let's pick the toughest one, problem 11-13. There it is. Okay, so if you wanted to expose the inside of this part, you can go to section, and there it is. Okay, so in a later chapter, we'll be talking about sections. So these are imaginary cuts that we take to expose the inside or interior features. A feature can be a hole, can be a pocket, etc. Okay, so what you would do is wherever you have a solid area, like this surface here and this one here, you would put hatching lines to indicate that you've sawed through it, right? But it is an imaginary cut, and you don't hatch the open area. So the hole, this area is open. You do not hatch that area. You only hatch the areas where you would physically, if you could physically saw through it, and it would leave teeth marks from the saw, then you would draw hatching lines. Okay, so and we'll cover that in a later chapter. Okay, so this is hatching, and we'll cover it again later on. And to exit, just hit the check mark, and you can exit the hatching command. All right, and there's other options. You can also add color instead of lines. All right, so move command. Okay, so move command. If I wanted to move something like, let's say, this beautiful pentagon pattern here. If I wanted to move it over somewhere, I can click move. Okay, pick a point to move it from. Think of it as your handle or reference point, and now you can move it. Right now it's only trying to go horizontal or vertical. If you turn off ortho, you have more freedom to move it. Okay, so there it is. If you wanted to make copies of this, I can window capture again, or rope. Yeehaw, lasso around, right? And let's go ahead and make copies. Pick a point where to copy from, and you can make as many copies as you want. Let's go with ortho. Now I can go vertically, and you can keep clicking and make as many copies as you want. Okay, and right click enter to exit. Okay, so that's the copy command. All right, let's go over to stretch. Okay, so let me delete all this stuff, or most of it. Delete, try it again. I didn't quite capture everything. There it is. Delete. Okay, stretch. Okay, let me do oh, I forgot the name of this quadrilateral. Trapezoid? Let me turn off ortho. Actually, this is a 5-sided shape. All right, so as you can see, I drew this closed profile, 5-sided. All right, so it's not a trapezoid, but let's go ahead and use this one to use a stretch command. Okay, so I'm going to use stretch, and I'm going to select the items. So I can either window capture the items I want to stretch. So I'm going to left mouse hold. And let's say I wanted to pick these two elements. So right now this element and this one is selected. So I selected my objects, so hit enter. And I'll grab a corner to stretch. Ta-da! That's not exactly stretch, right? So let's hit undo, Control Z. It's like, nope, that didn't work. All right, so we're going to do stretch again. But instead of capturing from left down towards the right, we're going to go the opposite. We're going to go from the bottom right. And we're going to capture from right going upward. Okay, so I selected these three elements this time. Hit enter, and then when I grab a corner, notice that now it stretches. Okay, so there's a difference between capturing from the bottom right corner going up versus the top going down towards the right. Okay, so this is stretch command. Ta-da! All right, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, we have rotate. Let's say I wanted to rotate this 5-sided shape. If I want to rotate it, okay, so you pre-select, click rotate, and pick a point to rotate about. Okay, so I'm going to pick this point. And notice I can rotate freely. I can even type in the command line, I can type in your degrees. You want to go 90 degrees and so on. If you want to go increments of 90 degrees, you can always turn on ortho. So it only allows me to rotate in increments of 90 degrees. 90, 180, 270, 360. Okay, so that's rotate. And if you're satisfied, all right, there it is. Click. And there is rotate. Okay, let's say we wanted to do symmetry. Let's say we wanted to make a symmetry shape of this one. symmetry over to the left. Okay, so let's go to symmetry. So I'm going to pre-select the items I want to symmetry or mirror, right? There it is. Okay, so click on symmetry. Now we do need a line. Okay, so we need a line. In order to define our line of symmetry, we need to click 2 points. It can be 2 points randomly, I believe. Let's see if I was to click out here. So it has to be 2 points. So here's click number 1. Click. Okay, so it's already giving me a preview. I haven't clicked the second one yet, right? See? It can symmetry in this direction, that direction, so on. If I turn off ortho, notice it's waiting for me to click the second one. It will not create the symmetry until you click the second one. So let me turn on ortho. And I'll do it this way, vertically. That's a nice image there. And click. Now it's asking me, hey, do you want to erase the original one on the right and only keep the left? And I don't want to erase anything, so I'll just say, nope, don't erase the original one. The default is no, so I can just hit enter. You do have the option to erase the original source. Okay, so that's mirror. All right, now let's take a look at scale. Sometimes you need to change the size of your object to fit inside of a page. We haven't talked about title blocks and sheets, but I'll bring this back up later on. But let's go ahead and play with scale. Okay, so I'm going to select this one. I'm going to use scale. Now you need to pick a point to scale from. So let's say I pick this point. Click. And see, I can scale. There you go. If I wanted to go half the size, I can type in 0.5. In the command line, 0.5 and 3, 2, 1. So half size, enter. That's half size. There it is. If I want to quadruple the size, scale, pick the point, type in 4 to quadruple the size, enter. And there it is. Let me zoom out. Okay, so that is scale. We also have trim. Okay, trim is a little bit tricky. I've already demonstrated trim before. Let me throw in a few lines here. I'll use the line command. Okay, so I'm going to make copies of these lines. Copy. Grab a endpoint or any point to grab from. Not good enough. If I click enter, I'll draw a vertical one. Okay, so we're going to do some trimming. Okay, so to trim, one thing we can do is pre-select everything. It's one option. We can pre-select everything. Say, hey, I want to select everything. I'm going to turn everything into a cutting element, so I can pre-select and click on trim and remove the portions you want. So let's say I want to get rid of this one, that one. Let's see if I can get rid of this one here. That one. I'm actually surprised it allowed me to pick that one. Okay, so you can just chop away the portions you don't want. Once you're done, you hit enter, and there you go. Okay, let me draw 2 circles, and I'll use one circle to trim another one. So let's say you wanted to trim off the bottom portion, or let's say the top portion of this little circle. So let me hit escape, deselect anything. So let's say I hit the trim command first. If you notice down here, it's asking me, what do you want to cut with? Well, I want to cut with the large circle. Oh, let me hit escape. I'm actually surprised it's letting me trim. Let's hit trim again. Oh, okay. I don't know if this is a new 2021 where you don't have to pre-select cutting elements. You can just go ahead and trim. Okay, if you're using an old version of AutoCAD, you would have to first pre-select what do you want to cut with, hit enter, and then chop away. But this 2021 caught me off guard. Something new. You can just go ahead and start chopping away without pre-selecting a cutting element. So there's the snowman, right? Oh, it's incomplete, but once you're done, hit enter. All right, let's go ahead and use fillet. Okay, if you want to round off a corner, let's round off the corners on this one. Okay, so let me first hit escape. Okay, so I'm going to use fillet, not fillet. Okay, fillet. Okay, so it rounds off a corner, so we can click fillet and type in a radius. Actually, the default radius is 0.125. If you want to increase the radius, let's increase the radius. Click on radius, type in 0.25, enter, and then select. Don't pick the corner. Pick the objects, the lines. So I'm going to pick this one. And then this one. As you can see, it's already giving me a preview of the fillet. Okay. If you want to repeat the command, hit spacebar. Let's fillet the other corner. Again, don't aim for the corner. And there it is. Okay, that's fillet. Okay, another option is to chamfer. Chamfer will do a straight cut on a corner, not a round corner, but a straight corner. So go to chamfer. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna have to zoom in. I'm gonna go use the default 0.125 and 0.125. If that's too small, I can always change the distance. So there's a distance 1, distance 2. You can always change it. I'll just leave it with the default 0.125 and 0.125. Click your first element, don't pick the corner, right? And your next element, and there's the chamfer. I want to repeat it again, hit spacebar to repeat. Pick your first element and second element. There it is. Okay, so that's a chamfer. And we'll do some chamfers more later on. Fillets and chamfers are very common. All right, so these items are way too large in size. So let me go ahead and delete some of this stuff. And delete with the key, with the delete button or eraser. Let me shorten this wannabe snowman. Let me change the scale, make it a little bit smaller. I'll pick the center to scale about, as you can see. I'll just randomly pick something. There it is. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do an array, rectangular array. Okay, so I'm going to pre-select the items I want to array. Okay, use rectangular array. As you can see, it's already giving me a preview. Hey, how many columns you want. You can either type in the columns, type in the rows, or you can just simply pull on the grips to increase it. Again, you can pull on the grips to increase the number of columns and or rows. You can also pick the upper grip to do it all in one shot, as you can see. I may have to turn off ortho just so I can have more freedom. Yep, more freedom. And if you want to change the spacing, use the inside triangle or arrowhead to increase or decrease the spacing. Pretty cool, right? So that's rectangular array. If you like it, put a check and you're done. All right, let's go to circular. Okay, circular array. Okay, so let me undo this. I'm going to undo this beautiful array. Just takes up a lot of space. Okay, there it is. Back to a single snowman. Okay, so I'm going to add a line. And let me turn on, Object Snap is on. Let me hover over the arc, pick a point. Right click enter. Okay, so let me show you circular array. Okay, so I'm going to pre-select everything. We're going to do an array again, but this time we're going to go with a circular array. My mistake, polar array. I'll pick this endpoint. And there is polar array. right? We can increase it, right? We can, let me turn off ortho. We can change the angle. We can reduce or increase the number. Okay, so that is polar array. Pretty cool. All right, so let's go ahead and delete. So most of you are already familiar with delete. Okay, so let's go ahead and undo instead. I'm gonna undo. And let me delete this line. Okay, another, we already covered explode. Let's go over offset. Okay, so you can also offset. So let me pre-select these two lines, and I'm going to offset. And I'm going to offset a length of, let's go 0.1. Or you know what, 0.25. And enter. Okay, so I'm going to select the items I want to offset. See how it's offsetting outward? Or I can go inward, outward. Okay, so that's offset. Ta-da! And if you want to trim off some of the excess, right? Clean this up. And you can keep on removing parts if you want. Okay. All right, so that is offset. Pretty cool command. Let me hit escape. Okay, there's a few more. We're not going to cover all of them because of time. Okay, so we covered most of these or all of them. Okay, one that we haven't covered is lengthen. And we're going to cover also align. We already covered join. The other ones, if you want to play with them, go for it, or even look them up in your textbook. I believe it's in chapter 2. Okay, so let's use lengthen. Okay, so lengthen, if you want to take a line, let's go ahead and draw a line. Okay, so if you want to lengthen a line, shorten it, we can use the lengthen command. If you're using an old version of AutoCAD, you may not have this icon, but you have the command. All you have to do is simply type in lengthen in the command line. Okay, so there's lengthen. So click on it. Hey, how much do you want to increase it by? Okay, delta. All right, I can say delta. I want to increase it by 2 inches or 2 units. Enter. Then if I just go towards the right portion of it, see, it's going to increase it 2 inches to the right. If I hover over the left, it'll increase 2 inches in the opposite. Let's go towards the right. There it is, and enter. Okay, let's use lengthen again. Lengthen. Let's go percent. Okay, I want to lengthen it by a percent or shorten it by a percent. Let's type in 50%. Enter. So in this case, we're cutting it at 50%, right? If you want to increase it, then go something above 100, like 150, 200%. Okay, so now we're removing 50% of it, cutting it in half, okay? Okay, let's go lengthen again. Lengthen. And we can go total. Hey, I want a total length. I know the length, so let's go total. And my total length, I want it to be 4 inches for the total length, 4, enter. So now I'm going to click on this portion, or I can go in the opposite direction, but it will give us a total length of 4 inches overall, right? And hit escape to deselect. Okay, so that was lengthen. All right, so there's a few other commands. They're not that important for this class, but if you want to play with them, or just look them up in your textbook. All right, so we're going to stop here with this video, and we will keep practicing these commands in later assignments. Okay, end of video.